I'm gone up to from 100 kilos up to 110 to 120 to 130 to 135. You're just getting so fat and sick. You're just getting all these injuries. The whole time still talking about natural medicine and trying to educate people on how to be healthy and happy. Where you're sitting there, crying yourself to sleep at night and then coming up onto a podcast with all the vibe, and you're like, well, it's no wonder you get into an imposter syndrome, huh?
Thanks for coming on to the show, Matt.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah.
My
Again,
pleasure.
round 2.
We'll have a crack.
Yeah. So we're just talking about the paper, no FAP, icing,
Yeah.
some benefits.
Well, no, so I was trying to work out why the icing of the balls helps.
Yeah.
And then I found a whole heap of papers saying that if you suntan your balls, that also helps. And I was thinking, so what is the goal? Because we're looking at trying to keep it 2 to 3 degrees cooler than the body, which is the whole hanging down theory. And what I worked out was there's a whole heap of processes that create self-destruction in the sperm. So when you get blue balls or something like that, and you've built up your sperm, your body has to break down that sperm and get rid of it. Now, what the process of doing that inside your body means that all the resources and nutrients used to make the sperm still there. But as the sperm dies through a process known as autophagy, which is like a cannibalization and catabolic process to destroy it, that is one of the greatest stimulants to stimulate testosterone production. So as you break down the sperm, then your body's got to replenish the sperm. But losing the sperm through ejaculation, where you don't have the nutrients, didn't have the same effect at building testosterone and increasing the sperm as if they actually lost the sperm through other mechanisms of autophagy, which could be cold exposure, heat exposure, or blue balls. Just waiting for the little sperm to go, that's enough time, and then off you go. And now, so what I've got to research next is having a look at things like vasectomies, because if you realise that through a vasectomy that they're just dropping the sperm back into the sac, so the resources are back there. It's constantly stimulating this sort of process. So yeah, anyway, weird conversations. Now,
mind blown though.
Well, no, because it all started with this stupid theory that I had once about why rock and roll and disco's gone, and rap and hip hop have picked up.
Interesting.
Tight pants.
Really?
So the rock and roll and the disco guys always had the really tight pants where they had hot nuts and they were less fertile.
What?
But the rap and the hip hop, baggy pants, low hanging balls, more fertile. So then they breed people with music taste that way. That's my theory.
Whoa.
I can't explain why rock and disco's not as popular as rap and hip hop. That's my only theory that I can come up with.
I'd love to go through your brain one day, just think, because you'd have so many theories all the time because you're researching like crazy. Yeah. Everyone listening, Matt is he's quite brilliant. You do so much, researching and just whatever sort of pulls you most towards stuff. And then you just go down these crazy holes and you create supplements or products, whatever that can help that, which is crazy. And we were just talking beforehand, obviously, because a lot of the people listening at that stage in their life were business and they want to stop burning out. They want to. My main philosophy is trying to help people stop them focusing on I just need to crush it, figure out what they actually want, and then put themselves as a priority. And we're just talking about that in terms of physiologically and through your mind, how you can actually do that stuff. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Oh well, do it. I'm not even joking. So I just turned 46 or something. I spent 20 years running through a career to get to be, I left high school and become a naturopath, straight up.
Straight from high school?
Straight from high school. And so at the age of 17, 18, I'm learning about all this sort of stuff. But it's terrible because I was rebellious at the same time. So here I am learning about how to be healthy, but just going, I'm going to rebel and I'm going to do everything bad and wrong. But then you end up with a career in the health space, as a naturopath and supplements and educator. And I used to do contracts for other companies. And the whole time I was kind of trying to find my balance from my workplace, and my workplace was health. So to find balance, I just did everything unhealthy. And then I always had this belief that when I get to a certain point of financial freedom, or if I get to a certain point of income, or a certain build up an entity or a business with staff, that can do all this sort of stuff, then I'm suddenly going to have all the time and resources I need to look after myself and my family and my friends. the end result is that is chasing your tail. I mean, that you never get to that point. I mean, that point, if you've got that tendency to basically, overcommit and set yourself up to like certain standards where you feel that you've got to constantly be working and pushing, or you can't actually go and do some stuff on yourself until you hit a certain milestone or a goal, and everything's moving goalposts in the business world. It's like, yeah, we plan an exit here, or we plan a strategy here, and then it doesn't suit someone else's timeline, so that just gets pushed back a year, or things change. And I mean, I never forget, it was 2015. This is probably the biggest lesson I could give to anyone. In 2015, I sat down with a business coach, expert person that was going to get me sorted, my lifestyle and my work, and get the balance. And they asked me my 5-year plan, which I told them. I told them my 5-year plan in 2015. Now, surprisingly, my 5-year plan from 2015 did not fucking consider 2020 that we had. That was not the end of I didn't actually go through going, well, part of my 5-year plan from 2015 is to finish with a bit of a global pandemic, where educators and that are not allowed to speak, like censorship, that was not something I had considered in 2015, that we would then, where I'd be bitching at 2018 going, oh, I can't wait for next year, 2019 is going to be a cracker. And then at the end of 2019 going, geez, that was a really hard year, dealing with things like TGA, and like I had a lot of other business stresses and that sort of stuff. And then we just got to get through this bit and then we'll be okay. And we just get through that bit, and then it's like 2020 was a global pandemic, great resets, total wealth shift, everything that we thought we knew changed. It's like, who would have had that as part of a 5-year plan? So then I go back and go, what's the kind of point in creating those sort of plans when I should just be basically happy to survive the day, and then focus on what's important to me in that time? Because at the end of it, that was a really weird way to finish a 5-year plan. And none of the stuff that I thought I was going to do, I did. In fact, I should have just called quits on my 5-year plan in 2017. I would have been sweet. I had to work another day of my life. You know what I mean? But then now we come to this bit. It's like, well, shit, we better start again.
Well, at least it's a new journey you get to enjoy, I guess. But yeah. I'd love to know like the change in perception that you sort of had.
Oh, well, this is the worst thing. So, oh man, what was that book I read? I read this book that totally messed with me. 1,000, 100,000. It's 100 and something year old book from Italy. It was originally written in Italian 100 years ago. It is so relevant still to today. But
so 100, 100,000.
Yeah, Luigi something or other. I'll find it and I'll show the people's. But that book was explaining that everyone has a version of you. Everyone you've met or has never met, anyone that just watched your podcast or, heard about you from someone else, or not even just saw you in the street. They have created a version of you, and it's out of your control, the version of you that they create. Well, their version is created based on experiences and ideas and perception, and what they might have heard or witnessed themselves or experienced about you. And then they go, no, I've decided that's what the person is. The people closest to you can even give you a nickname, like nickname you, and that person, they can then know what you want. Someone come up and ask what you want for lunch, and I know what that person wants, because they've created a version of you. And then they'll also know when you're going to make a silly mistake before you know you're going to make it, and all that sort of stuff. So when you're busy trying to build a business, like naturally you might be the kind of guy that would rather be at the beach. Naturally you're the guy that's kind of like, cool, I'd rather go to the gym.
I'd rather sun my balls.
Yeah, I'd rather sun my balls after an ice pack.
Yeah.
I do think that the ultimate way to testosterone is watching boobs while you ice your balls. And then in the sun.
Yeah.
Because that's just if I combine the research, that's what it's
Yeah,
suggesting.
because it's like signals of lust and then all the other things
and then
as well.
the autophagy and then the blue balls, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I need some testosterone.
I need to go to the gym or something.
Yeah, so basically what happens is when you're doing this hustling and grinding and you're trying to achieve this goal so that you can go back and do all the things that you want to do and be the person that you've always wanted to be. And if those goalposts keep moving, the actual people closest to you will come to you and say things like, you've changed. I never thought you'd be this entrepreneurial type that all you care about is working and pushing towards there. Or like, what happened to that fun-loving, happy guy that just wanted to be at the beach, that would take days off work and just go to the beach because the weather was good? or when the fishing was right, just go fishing and just call up everyone and say, sorry, I'm not coming in, I'm going fishing. And then you're like, well, I'm a dad and I'm a husband and now I'm a business owner and I'm an employer. And I've also got to get to this point so that way we can have all this money and have all this time. And the whole time you're working towards it, you end up creating resentment in those closest to you, but not only resentment, but also confusion, because these people are sitting there going, that's not the dude I thought you were. And then they're sitting there going, well, that's not the dude I thought I was either. Like, I'm this cool guy. Like, I'm happy. I'd rather be outside. And then they're going, oh, well, you spend all your time at an office and you wear these stupid business clothes and you're like kind of all serious all the time. And then when you come home, you're so stressed, and then you try to give us quality time, but you're kind of not really there because your phone's still going, but you also know you haven't achieved those goals you set for yourself. So you're sitting there going, you've got all these business goals you've set for yourself and you've got no time for everything else. My calendar was full of meetings and like deadlines and like reminders and tasks. Nowhere in my calendar did it say go fishing, or nowhere in my calendar did it say go to the gym like at this time. So it was work, and then anything outside of that there was no time for, because you're basically getting reminders in your calendar that this is the next work thing you've got to do. And then you're like, next thing you know, I'm gone up to from 100 kilos up to 110 to 120 to 130 to 135. You're just getting so fat and sick. You're just getting all these injuries. The whole time still talking about natural medicine and trying to educate people on how to be healthy and happy. Where you're sitting there, crying yourself to sleep at night and then coming up onto a podcast with all the vibe, and you're like, it's no wonder you get into an imposter syndrome, huh? He was like, wow, man, this is like crazy. Who is this? I am an imposter because this isn't even me. Like, I'm running this life, and it's like I've got a marketing department telling everyone that I'm perfect, And you're sitting there like, oh, that's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. Yeah. Well, do you think that sort of, what I like to get clear on is just sort of like, well, now sort of how do you look at all that? Because when you're at that stage and you're 130 kilos, one of the best podcasts in the world at the time, with all these things, and now it's like, well, that's not there, but you look so healthy. You look so good.
I feel great.
Yeah,
I
you look so good.
I genuinely feel great. And so I went through a really rough patch where we ended up, having to resign and do all that sort of stuff and just quit. And then after that, you get a phase of what they call gardening duty. That's crazy. You basically spend 10 years with certain phone numbers and emails and projects with timetables and calendars. And, oh man, I had this pattern that used to run through me all the time. I would always freak out that I never had enough time. That I simply did not have enough time to get done what I needed to do. And it was always one of those things where I've got this coming up. I need to get this done. And
look, why? Was it just pressure to succeed? Like, what happened? Because you seem someone who wouldn't be so vibed to, or inclined to actually crush business, because I know you've got like a real big heart, and the things that you want to do is create awesome products for people. Yeah. So was it external pressures? Was it?
I think it's trying to be the version that other people are creating.
That they created for you.
They create this version of you. They tell everyone you're capable of doing these things, and then this marketing team will basically make you out to be someone that's not human, that's perfect. And then you just simply can't.
How easy is being perfect, man?
Yeah. So you freak out, and that whole having to complete things. But you know what used to happen? I'd always get to this point where I was like losing it. Like going seriously mental.
How? Was it just like stressing out at your desk?
Just stressing out. I had so many people telling me, I knew what needed to be done, and I knew I was the person that needed to do it. And at any moment, if I got distracted or if I got taken away or if my time was wasted, I was like, you don't understand that it's time. And I was so obsessed with time. And then, which means if I gave quality time to the family, I would do that with intensity. It'd be like, we're going to Lego the shit out of this right now. I've allocated an hour for this fucking Lego,
We're going to do it.
And it's just like, what are you doing? Just Lego. And it was just like, every part of my life was become that structured where I had to achieve something within that time frame. But then what happened, whenever I got to a point of losing it, where I'm running out of time, like the time that I was getting lied to by a manufacturer who said, we've delivered your stock, or I'm watching it get put onto the truck right now. only to find out that that was just a straight out lie. It wasn't getting put on the truck. And after 3 or 4 times of days or going into weeks of this person lying to me, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this. I have to just, no good news or bad news, just news. Just straight up tell me what it is so I can plan around. Anyway, I got so angry with this person that I banged the desk. And then the guys with me said, yeah, come in, let's just go for a coffee. You're stressed. I don't have time for a coffee, you know? And then they're like, no, seriously, man, just come for a walk. You need to just calm and have a breath. So then as we walk, and they've gone, oh, and by the way, you've got a little bit of blood on your hand. And so I've looked down at my hand, and here's my finger hanging down the side. Open compound fracture where I just busted my hand open. My right hand. So here I am freaking out. I can't get all my work done. Now, at the time I was doing the formulating, I was actually in the facility making the capsules and making the creams and making the products. I was bottling them, labeling them, and then I was going away at nights doing seminars. I was writing books, doing the podcasting. There was pretty much every part of the business other than just the banking that I was doing. And then I broke my hand. And then I couldn't do anything.
What a lesson. Isn't that just a perfect
Yeah.
thing for that to happen,
Yeah,
to
and
like force you to stop?
Take me to the hospital and sit in the hospital in the emergency room.
Yeah.
And then you just sit there the whole
Fested.
time. Yeah, and I'm just like, and then you just have this moment just going, well, I can't, you know, the time will come. I mean, I didn't have the time for this, yet I managed to do it. I broke my hand. I had weeks off. Everything I did, I had to stop. So when I handed in my resignation and everything from that job and everything, and they gave me this gardening duty, I had like 3 months. So I'd gone from bang, 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 constantly, and in the middle of lots of really important projects that I was freaking out over. And then they told me, go home, gardening duty. By the way, we're taking your phone, we're taking your emails, we're taking all this sort of stuff. Just go. And you're not allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to do anything in the industry.
They didn't
You're not allowed to talk to anyone. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed. You basically got to go and hide and wait for us to call you. And then I'm just like, so man, those 3 months was just like, it was weird. Everything had taken off. I had nothing. So all of a sudden then I'm going to the gym, 1-2 hours every day. I'm walking for a couple of hours every day, just like wandering. And then in the garden, like literally did my gardening duty. I'm just like, well, okay, I'll go do some gardening because I'm still in that process of being a good soldier. I'll do exactly what I'm told. And then the family, and spending some time with the family and stuff like that. And oh man, it was such a trip. And to freak out this whole time about objectives and needing to get to these things, that I push myself, push until I break. And then all of a sudden, the time arrives, the resource arrives, the support arrives. When I can't do it, there's people that could do the things for me. All I had to do was ask, probably. For a little bit of
Asking
help.
for help, man. I always say that literally asking for help. Like, I like to clarify, help is a person. He's a guy that's always around us. He could be you, he could be me, but he's always here, and he's always like, you can just reach out for me. And I sort of treat him like a god, as like one of the ancients, because it's sort of like, help's always been there, and every time we're struggle, we should ask for help. And it reminds me of, I think it's either Seneca or Marcus Aurelius quote, which is, everything is good and always will be. And there's one thing as well that you were mentioning before that I was thinking about, because I work with a lot of like business people, and what I figured out, and depending on certain personality types, certain traits, introversion, extroversion, what like type you are, how you actually are. If you're someone who is a creator, who you are, because you actually get in and actually physically create things which impact people's lives for the better, which is like crazy. Some of the stuff you tell me is nuts. I just had this like one quote that I like to give to people who are creators, and it's, creators need clear schedules.
Oh, yeah.
So they should always be, if you're like a creator, and anyone who's listening, if you're a creator, just to understand that even if you do have a calendar and you use it, majority of the time in there should just be blocked out for you to be clear. Because but you do your best work, be at weird or strange hours. Or times when you're like, oh, I've got an idea. And then enthusiasm rises up within you and you go and get it done. And that's why the Greeks have the terminology for enthusiasm as meaning possessed by a god.
Yeah, right.
Which is what it actually means, to have that energy for whatever it is. So.
Yeah, and that's so true, because I'll basically go through, I'll do my job. This is how I've run it my whole life, really, since the whole of building up these businesses. During the business hours, I was a manager. So I was there trying to manage other people, make sure that other people had their tasks to do, and make sure that they were all busy and effective and productive, and capable of taking the calls. And anytime someone wanted to book something in, yes, that's what I do.
Yeah, that suits my personality type, probably not yours.
Yeah,
So.
but then what I was doing is, then I'd go home, and then I'd do the quality time with the family. We'd do that sort of stuff, then get into the bath times and a happy hour and all that sort of crap, and then get everyone to bed, and then the wife would go to bed, and then I'd be like, okay, right. I'd then take like a little bit of time to just like sit and look at the idiot box or something, just to go like, right. Then I'd basically get out the mind maps and I'd just start. And then sometimes you'd be going through, and next thing you know, it's like 3 or so in the morning, and you're like, oh, I don't know how this happened. Quickly get to sleep. Quickly try to get, and that whole thing is like, well, it's 3 o'clock now, so if I get to sleep now, I'm going to get 3 hours by the time I wake up at 6. That should be fine. And then you're looking at the clock at 3:30 going, now if I get to sleep now.
I do that all the time. That's 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. That should still be okay. And then when you get to that point, you go, oh, okay, you might as well just go finish that thing you were doing and then have a nap later. But then there's the same thing. It's like you do that for a few days to get on top of things, and then you hit the wall, or you get sick, or you get injured or something, and then you've got to take time off work anyway. So the balance is the key, is that to basically make sure you schedule into your calendar the important stuff that's important for you, for your health, and make sure that gets done, because you'll always find time, for work. It's the same as like with bills and stuff, you spend the money on what you've got to spend it on. You'll always find money to pay your bills. So that's why I always get caught up with that drive and that motivation to kind of achieve goals. I'm very goal orientated in that sense and committed to those goals. And I have a motto that's run through my head my whole life, which is like, results, not excuses. And so my biggest problem is some of these rules that I've set up for myself, they put a lot of pressure on you, because everything I go to do, I'm like, is this an excuse, or is this a result?
And there's a lack of empathy and compassion for yourself.
None. Man, if I was to talk to someone else the way I talk to myself, I'd be murdered or sued or something. Like, I'd be hated at very least. If I was to actually work staff or something away the pressure I put onto myself, it would never work. But if I was to be as nice to myself as I am to other people, and if I was to be as healing to myself as I am to an understanding, that would be a nice place to be. I just need to know me, but I need to be on the other side. And there's probably heaps of people like it, because we're so cruel to ourselves sometimes. We're just brutal. And I say it to my sons. I pull my sons up when they say things. Words are powerful.
Compassion is a language, Matt. Straight up. Because I do a lot of this coaching type stuff. But with so many things can be solved with compassion. Joseph Campbell talks about it. I'm pretty sure some other philosophers talk about it quite regularly. And but the thing is in 2021 or 2022, sorry, Jesus, I'm a year late. Is actually learning how to speak compassion. Sort of like, if you try to learn Japanese, you don't speak it for a while, or you go to Japan and you try to speak English, and then they're like, we didn't understand it. And if you don't know the words or the articulation for compassion and you can't speak it, you're like never going to use it for yourself. And if you can't do it for yourself, it's hard for, to do it around the people around you. Then people are like, oh, you're kind of closed off. And you're like, I swear I'm not. I feel like...
because the version that I think I am, it's not the version, and then I start to freak myself out. This is where I read these books and this can of worms opens, because I'm like, hang on, who am I? Am I the guy that said those nasty things, or that the guy that was, stressed and reacted badly or something like that, or am I the guy that felt bad for that? You know what I mean? Like, if I go through and snap and burn, I know I'm like one of those men idiots too that basically will. I got an ego. I don't want to feel as though I was wrong or did something wrong. So you're always defending yourself or justifying your reactions and things like that, when instead of just going, I kind of didn't really mean to say that. I just kind of was sorry. I was having a sooky moment, and I spat the dummy, But who are you? I mean, you're the guy that kind of resent or regrets doing the things, or the guy that feels guilty for hurting someone's feelings. The guy that really didn't want to actually have to tell this person that they didn't do their job, or are you the guy that actually did those things? Because the reality is you did those things and you said those things, that's who you are. So if you're not acting the way you want to be, then you're creating these versions out there of yourself, and that's actually who you are. And in those people, that's who you are. And if you keep doing that all over the place, then regardless of what you think. So then the key then is to actually act in with authenticity and honesty.
Comes down to awareness.
Yeah, where's my phone? You should see what's on my phone. I'll grab it soon. But on my phone, I have these words now that says, so every time I'm having a conversation and that, because I always had this stupid phone with me and stuff like that. And so on the front of my phone now, it says authenticity, honesty, integrity, and making sure when I make a decision or if I'm communicating to someone that I'm doing it with those sort of things. A friend of mine, Tash White, that does this soul intuitive sort of stuff and a lot of that healing and that sort of stuff. She kind of helped me with a lot of these leakages as well. Just saying basically, this is where you're not acting in integrity. You're not acting in the way you want to be, and this is where the confusion comes around about who you are and what you are, because you basically multiple versions of yourself, just depending on whether you're trying to be nice or not, but none of that's honest. And if you need to just be basically tell people who you really are and what you really believe, it won't have as much communication problems, I was like, oh shit, so now I've got these rules. Now I got these rules to like call myself on it and just go, oh man, that was like, you're being passive aggressive little bitch there. You should have just explained to them.
Instead of building up that resentment. Yeah, especially within yourself. I'd also like to ask you, because you've got like some amazing mentors and some like really awesome people. I know they've influenced you for all the stuff that you're like learning at the moment, and I know you help a lot of people with like disease and ailment stuff, but you also help a lot of people with like human optimization. Yep. What's new at the moment?
Oh, well, a lot of it's basically going back to this whole holistic thing. So, which I'm stoked about, because a lot of these people have believed that there was a tool or there was a modality or there was a form of exercise or some mental practice or some degrees Celsius that you should sit in or something that will fix everything. And now people are realizing that there's a reason why there's so many different modalities out there that work for different people, is because we live in a holistic system and everything interacts. And so what I'm really excited about now is I'm seeing a lot of the ego drop, and I'm seeing these people that were dead set certain that their way of resolving trauma was the way. And then I'm realizing that there's some people now aren't getting results in someone, and they're not blaming those people anymore. They're realizing it's part of a holistic system and there's probably another way. Or there might actually be a modality or a coach or someone that's better for them. And it doesn't mean that they're not the best at what they do. It just means that what they do is not the best for that person. And so I'm really excited to see the networking, this holistic networking, spinning me out actually to see, I don't know, whatever happened in those last couple of years where everyone at one stage was becoming so specialized, they're becoming so compartmentalized that they only would focus on their one particular area, and they get better and better. And I used to have this joke that a specialist knows more and more about less and less until they know absolutely everything about nothing, because they're focused to it. You're better off being a generalist. That's probably the simple answer to your question. Is the movement that I'm seeing is away from being a specialist and more towards being a generalist, because now I'm seeing doctors prescribing antioxidants for long COVIDs, cannabis and that sort of stuff happening. And I'm seeing these weird coaches that do body work now interacting with the psychologist for the mental work. And then all these people realizing that unless you've got a lifestyle coach, then none of it's going to work anyway. So now I'm seeing what you're doing fitting in with what the medical specialists are doing, and this whole big holistic network going, man, seriously, there is no one thing and there is no right or wrong. It's like everyone's an individual. And even though we're in this crazy big bubble, I won't say dome, I've been getting a lot of that too. But there's so that's the biggest thing that I'm excited about, is not so much actually anyone specialised in any particular ingredients, although I am really excited about some of the movements that's happening in supplementation that's going to take supplements to the next level. Natural supplements are about to go crazy.
Wow, I'm excited to talk about that.
Well, we understand now how they work. we'll understand a little bit better how they work.
I'd like to just quickly interrupt to what you were saying beforehand. There's a real good quote Alan Watts used to say.
Yeah.
And he said that the best kinds of politics that ever existed were the ones that just muddled through.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good instead of, obviously, as you mentioned, seeing a specialist or whatever. Sorry, I'd love to start chatting about this natural supplement stuff and sort of stuff that you figure out, because I love watching your like mind maps as well and seeing you like draw out all these like crazy different pathways for how certain things work.
Yeah.
And then actually then applying like, oh, I take these natural things and whatever it is, and it's actually going to actually really help.
But this is what I love about mind maps, and especially when looking at a biochemical system, because we can show all these different interactions within a particular pathway. You know, we get uppers, downers, sliders, moves around. We know that this interacts with that, but we don't really know which one starts first, and it doesn't matter either. Once someone's stuck in the pattern, we've got to break the pattern, and then it'll sort itself out. But when you're doing the mind maps and you're showing the pathophysiology, or you're doing a disease process or something, and you're going, here's all the things that we know. And then what do we know about how they interact to each other? We know that this one stimulates that one, that. And it's all kind of cool, because we go, when that one's up, that one's down. And you can kind of, it all makes sense. Then what I love about natural medicine is that you'll then discover a herb or something, and you'll go, and it'll have a particular mode of action. You know, it'll go, right, we're going to target this particular receptor with this herb. And they do a heap of research on that. And you go, man, that's a really cool looking tool for that. And they'll compare how that herb works to drugs or something on that receptor. And they go, you know, it's comparable. And then we go, that's sweet. So then we go, now, in this mind map, in this holistic system, what else does that herb do? And then you go and research what the herb does. And it's like, not only does it work on that receptor, but it actually targets the inflammation that causes the problem. And then how does it target that inflammation? Oh, it actually targets the microbe that we've just discovered to be associated with it. And then you're like, oh, but it also contains this nutrient that happens to help benefit the detoxification of that. And then you find the same herb. It might stimulate this hormone, block that hormone, target this microbe, provide anti-inflammatory, antioxidant support. And you'll find that over and over and over again. And then you'll find, oh, but then they'll say the dose isn't strong enough because, you know, it doesn't get absorbed. But then you realise that same active component might be found across a dozen plants that are all capable of becoming a meal on your plate.
That's
or
so
a supplement.
interesting.
And then you'll go, yeah.
Please continue.
And then you'll look at the medication in the sense that they have a specific target, but that's all they do. They don't have this intricate system of other effects. And if they do, then sometimes they're not good. You know, like for example, we might find a drug that might work on lowering blood pressure from one thing, but then cause kidney damage that puts it back up later. And then, but you'll find a herb that actually helps to lower blood pressure here, but then also protects the kidney over here.
What?
And you're just like, nature is so much smarter than anyone will ever be in their ability to create these compounds. The funny thing is that now we're going through, it's quite funny because we had herbs like berberine, for example, that was bagged and discredited for years, saying it's nothing legitimate. And then all of a sudden, then they're talking about metformin being this amazing drug with all of these benefits. And then they're going, so metformin's basically doing the same thing as berberine. And then they're going through going, now, well, gee, but berberine also does this. So then they go and research metformin and go, wow, it does that to the microbiome too. So now they're really excited about this drug that's going to be this famous drug because it has multiple actions like a herb. And I'm sitting there going, well, we could kind of look at the herbs.
Use the herb.
Yeah. And then if we realise that those herbs could be interchangeable across a whole species of herbs, it doesn't have to be that same one that you can change. And there might be other ones that are more suited to you.
Herbs are legitimate superfoods. Hey,
No,
they're
absolutely.
legitimate. We should. I'm not sure like what your opinion is in terms of, because I wrote like an article and just in terms of it, just a whole lot of research because I wanted to when I was doing bodybuilding competitions, eat the best quality food as possible just for ultimate health. And every time I looked into something, I'm like, herbs are just crazy. So I'm just gonna just jack heaps of them in all of my meals. And I've never felt better in my entire life. I don't know if there's like a ratio for like what certain things should be eaten, but I just ate heaps of them. Like, you know, with one meal, I'd have like a whole punnet of parsley because I'm like, I want to clean my blood.
Yep, perfect.
And like, felt great.
Yeah, and that's what I love about herbs. They're so, and I can't, and one of the big things that anyone can do that, you switch something like an iceberg lettuce, which has got bugger all, anything in it, to herbs. Just that simple switch, you can totally change your nutrient density in your food, plus all these other polyphenol beneficial actions. So Herbs in there are amazing. But with anything, they are very powerful as well. So the herbs will have compounds in them that eventually could become problematic for you, and if you're intolerant to things like salicylates and that or whatever, then you could start reacting to the herbs and spices as well. But everything's about understanding the person and working through balance. But I mean, seriously, when you look at the beneficial effects of herbs and spices, they are phenomenal. And I'm obsessed with certain things that through culture have lasted thousands of years or hundreds of years that we still do, but no one really knows why. Like they did this research with the microbiome where they found certain Clostridia species, emergencies or whatever they are, they will hijack carnitine and choline out of eggs and meat and nuts and things like peanuts. See when they say they cause heart disease? Because if you got the wrong bugs, they hijack it and they make this stuff called TMAO. Well, they've gone and found that if you have dill with your eggs, then it doesn't do it as much. So the plants block that conversion. So things like garlic, so having meat with garlic stops the meat from causing heart disease. But we've always done that. It's just because it tastes good and everything. But now we find out that it's through that antimicrobial. So then you're finding there's all of these really cool things. And then looking at peanuts, for example, loaded up full of choline. That's how they contribute to heart disease. Not because they might be a source of cholesterol because they're oily, like they always said, but they for the choline, the bugs feed on the choline, convert it to TMAO. But if you have the peanuts with the skins on it, like the old beer nuts, or if you're cracking them out of the shells where you're still getting the skins on the peanuts control the microbiome and stop it converting the choline to heart disease. So then all of a sudden you just go, oh man. And then you realise that I could also make them a little bit spicy and make them add a little bit of turmeric and bits and pieces to it and cumin seeds and that or whatever. And next thing you know, these peanuts are actually preventing heart disease.
Let's just buy heaps of land and just put farms everywhere with all this good stuff.
Well, no, but this is one of my big things that I want to do, and I just can't get anyone to bloody allow me to do it. And this, oh man, seriously, I could tell you how hard I've tried to get this done. And my strategies that have gone over decades to try to implement these things to get right to the point when I can access waste material from Australian agriculture. Because you've got to realise that the peels and the skins and the outsides of these shells, the waste products, all the stuff that they're throwing away, is where all the nutrients are.
You can make awesome products out of it.
If I could just be given the waste from a juicing factory, I could turn that into something. There is so much value in waste. And I'm talking about just pulp, but also you've got to understand that the fibre and the polyphenols and then even the initial fermentation that starts in that process. This is where we're going to get all the best nutrients, but also the activated forms of nutrients. I actually worked in a trial where I worked out that no one knows how to measure folate, activate methylated forms of folate in plants properly. They all convert it to folic acid and then go back and try to have a guess. So I did a project with Griffith University to develop a technique to measure methylated forms of folates in plants. Because the reason why I wanted that...
And it worked?
Yeah, and because the method of measuring the methylated folate in the plants was actually an extraction process. So to discover how to measure it, I discovered how to extract methylated forms of folate out of plant material. And it made a major discovery with that, which I still own, but I'm not allowed to do anything with it because of commercial agreements and stuff. Oh, we had one industry where they had this waste product from a green industry, and we taught them how to... They had two waste products. They had this rotten fibrey stuff, and then they had this ethanol stuff, and I taught them how to run the rotten fibre back through the ethanol to purify it so we can make pure protein out of plants. And then that thing's been, they make the invention and then they work out if there's any commercial opportunity from it and if they want to go ahead with it. Otherwise, they just take the invention and just hold it. And so it's just like, so then I just keep moving through these things. Even at one stage, took investment from a company purely because they had access to all these farms across Australia, because I just desperately wanted to take the materials. Because I made a product at one stage which was just leaves and peels and fruit stuff. Actually, there was a farm, we discovered a farm that made foods really well. Like just did old school farming, and they put the dung in the cow horns and they bury them and they create like these fermentation garden beds, just fermented rotten bed. It's just everything about it was just done old school. When they measured their fruit and veg, they're all full of nutrients. Surprise, surprise. And so basically, we just got that material, but because we could standardise the plant material to say this is how much B vitamin, this is how much folate, this is how much... Then I could make a multivitamin out of plant material. The frustrating thing is that it was an Indian company, and there's all these other issues with shipping, there's all these, just a lot of issues. So I was working towards building that up through Australian farmers using Australian waste. I just could never get the bloody thing to happen. This stuff is still just getting thrown away.
Matt for Prime Minister.
Yes.
Oh.
No. Bugger that.
Is it yes and no?
No. I'd just be the advisor. Give me the World Economic Forum.
Give him some tools. Give him some resources.
Well, they're all at the World Economic Forum. No.
Yeah.
So we got to get those guys on board. And then, but yeah. No.
Well, what are some of your, like, just out of interest, people who's listening, in case they would like to go, like, try some stuff, what are some of your, like, sort of favorite herbs or old school things that you've used that do certain things, whether they could, for example, if someone is a business owner and they're crushing stuff and they just want to, like, have something to relax and use, or if there's, for example, someone wants to train hard, or people want to have, like, whatever stuff that you see that's common.
Yeah.
That could benefit people in terms of old school herbs for, like, them to try or whatever. Is there any in your mind that sort of
and there's a couple
tick over?
There's a couple that I'm just obsessed with.
Oh,
so there's this. If you research these things called urolithins.
Hang on a second. I think the battery ran out. Would you mind passing me just another one of those batteries?
Yep.
I can still hear you on the mic.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah.
We say hi, George, because George is the editor.
Oh, yeah. Don't touch me there, Corey. Stop touching me there.
Oh, you can put the camera back on.
Cool.
Yeah, we're still recording.
So what we say? Urolithins.
Yeah, what are they?
So urolithins are, they're called a postbiotic.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is
I remember listening to, sorry to interrupt, I remember the start of, like, your, like, podcast stuff when you guys were talking so much about prebiotics. We just feel like we're talking about prebiotics and normal probiotics. I remember you guys literally found, it was only like a few years ago or something, when you were like, postbiotics are the best.
They are, because, so, they'll always talk about bioavailability of herbs.
Yeah.
So that, we've got this active compound that we worked out is behind all the health benefits. Oh, a good example would be berberine that we already mentioned.
I like berberine.
Yeah, same. So when you take berberine, comes out of lots of plants, golden seal and berberis and all these bits and pieces. When the microbes feed on berberine, they convert it to a thing called dihydroberberine, which is actually what we call a postbiotic. So anything that before it gets to the bug is a prebiotic. The bug itself is called a probiotic. If you combine a prebiotic and a probiotic, you got a symbiotic.
I love that.
They're all the different words.
We got venom and carnage.
Well, the funny thing is that is the reality of it. When you take prebiotics with postbiotics and symbiotics and all that sort of stuff, we don't know what's living in your gut. So depending on what bugs you have in your gut is whether it takes those nutrients down a good pathway to be venom or down a bad pathway to be carnage.
What?
Yeah. And so
what?
The reason between one man's medicine and another man's poison is basically the microbiome. Now, if we were to take out that variability and actually have a consistent microbiome, then everyone would respond the same to the herbs. Now, the reason why is that is because the microbiome, depending on what lives in you, is what your postbiotic compounds are. So we can go back to the carnitine and choline. How many supplements have you seen with carnitine and choline in it? All the fat burners, all the nootropics, they're all the ones that do it. They could be complexes full of choline. So they've put choline and carnitine in everything and thinking that carnitine stimulates fat loss and choline stimulates brain function. And that's as simple as that. But they're okay? So that's prebiotic. Once they're postbiotic, they could be converted to TMAO.
No, and TMAO is bad.
Exactly. So urolithins, back to where I was going from. There's a whole heap of plant compounds found from gallic acids and epigallocatechins and all these weird punicalagins and all these stupid words that come through as a precursor compound, the stuff that's found in strawberries, pomegranates, all sorts of plant material and that sort of stuff. They convert through certain microbes and can create these compounds called urolithins. Now, urolithins come through and have a hormonal effect where they work as SERMs, they work as SARMs, but they also stimulate mitochondrial function. So the things that are famous for their urolithins, probably the most common one is Shilajit. So you would
Really?
Shilajit, that's the active
Because
ingredient.
I've just heard, if anyone hasn't heard it, it's Shilajit. What it is, it's like that Himalayan resin from the salt things, which is like one of the most mineral dense foods that you can have, that everyone who's taking it at the moment in the industry is like,
don't fall
amazing.
for the trick.
Why?
It's not the minerals.
Oh.
So and don't get the ones high in fulvic acid.
Because that's what they promote.
I know.
High in fulvic acid.
That's the scam. No, you don't want the fulvic.
Everything is melting in my brain.
No, okay, so let me tell you. So Shilajit is really cool. So Shilajit is basically all these plants growing in the cracks of the rocks on the hills. Those plants drop leaves, they have resin, sap, they shed bark. That all goes into the same cracks. In amongst the cracks, we've got dirt because they're rocks and shit. And there's also microbes living in there. And then it rains a bit and all that sort of stuff. It creates this little sloppy slurry that's basically compost, full of bugs and mold and all that sort of stuff, using the minerals, and it makes this resin. Now, the resin is very variable, depending on what plants grow there, depending on what minerals are there. So they need a marker of standardization. A marker of standardization to prove that it's dirt from these rocks in the Himalayas. So they choose to use fulvic acid as that marker of standardization.
So you want the low fulvic acids.
Yeah, well, my key. So most people try to sell fulvic acid 50 to 80%. My Shilajit that I buy, 3%.
What brand?
3%. Oh, no, there is no brand. I go straight to the hills.
Oh,
so we got to.
So you just buy it from the suppliers.
Yeah. But I got to get that right material. Now I made products for for my old ATP Science and used to use this Shilajit as well, and that was the key behind why our product works so much better than everyone else's. I can't believe I'm giving the secret away. But the big point is that everyone else used to try to, because the sales reps, they'll try to say that their Shilajit's better than next dude's Shilajit based on fulvic acid levels. It's not the fulvic acid, that's the mineral compounds. So that's a marker of stat. Now, what they usually do is when Shilajit comes out of the ground, this is what you've got to realize, it comes out of the ground at probably 0.5 to 1.5% fulvate. They then purify it and get rid of a lot of the heavy metals and other crap and dirt and sticks and twigs. You'll get it up to around that 2.5 to 3.5% fulvate just through natural purifying. So that's the shit you want.
That's the shit's legit.
Because what they'll do the next step is they'll actually isolate the fulvic acid and spike that material up. Now they can isolate the fulvic acid up to 80% fulvic acid.
Damn it.
So then if you go and ask for 3% fulvic acid from that dude, he's going, yeah, I'm going to go and fill it up with sawdust to take it from 80% back to 3%. So you get shit product. So yeah, so what you need to do is get the pure stuff, not as refined, because what it has, it's got all the plant polyphenols or polysaccharides or whatever they want to call them that have actually got the plant-based material with the microbiome that converts through to the urolithins.
How do we get it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. Everyone is probably like, we want it so bad. Matt, can you hurry up and make one for extras, please?
Let's do it. So you'll find the same urolithins get created from pomegranate peel, maca as well,
so
strawberries.
So this urolithins, essentially, with the whole SARM, SERMs, all stuff, they're increasing your testosterone in terms of like layman's terms.
Well,
they're increasing brain function. They're healing your gut, and they're
mitochondrial density,
which is the energy in your cells. So you're going to have like more energy in terms of for the amount of cell power that you actually have. Whoa.
So they do, they've been shown the Shilajit, for example, increases sperm production 25-30%, increases testosterone to 25-30%.
What?
Oh yeah, turns you into
how much is taking it? Like
1 gram. So you do 1 gram of Shilajit,
a day,
aiming for around that 3 to 5% of fulvic acids.
Shit's legit.
And and that was the main ingredient in Chyawanprash, which was one of the oldest known medicines to man, which was just a tonic blend, made up of 40-something bloody herbs. Yeah, but Shilajit is, well, in Ayurvedic medicine, they listed Shilajit as, you basically, I can't remember the terminology, but they basically said you can't cure anything without it.
What?
Because it's the earth element. So it covers the whole element of the combining the dirt, the postbiotic, the composting. It's like that cycle of life sort of thing. It's like,
is there anything else that's similar? That
you can when you eat pomegranate, you get the same stuff out of oak barrels. And they talk about, so then oak, things that are fermented in oak will have it.
So a little bit of wine's not too bad.
Yeah, wine and whiskies and that sort of stuff really good if it's fermented in the oak.
Yeah.
Because it's actually the oak that releases the urolithins. You can actually buy
Eat some wood.
Robuvit as a trademark material available right now that is basically standardized urolithin from oak barrels.
What?
Yeah, and you can buy that now. I think it's 150 milligrams, the input amount that you need to put into a supplement. So powerful. But you can make it out of pomegranates, you can make it out of strawberries. So now you see why I was obsessed with fruit waste. Because I can actually go and get all this fruit waste, run it through one of these systems and make the bloody stuff. And then we can release it out so everyone has it. And now, can you imagine with Shilajit being so variable, because they only measure the fulvic acid as a marker of standardization.
That if you had the waste to make it.
So I used to go through and have a whole heap of other measurements for my Shilajit that I'd go through and send it off to Southern Cross Plant Sciences. There's a guy, Ashley, there that's really cool, and he's kind of like us, he gets interested in the stuff. And happens to be at a university testing facility. Man, you got to test this shit and tell us about it. And so I'd have all these other markers looking for combinations of gallic acid and epigallate, catechate and galates and all these weird compounds that convert to urolithins, or measuring the urolithins directly. There was one study showed when they used the urolithins in the product that 1 gram of Shilajit per day for 3 months, I think, increased the amount of coenzyme Q10 per cell, equivalent to taking 1,200 milligrams of CoQ10 every day. And the CoQ10, I mean, we don't take 50 to 200 milligrams, too bloody expensive to do anymore.
Yeah, I don't buy it because it's too expensive.
Yeah, but you can actually build more mitochondria with these Shilajit compounds, and then because you've got more mitochondria per cell, more cell has more CoQ10. And we know CoQ10 is made from cholesterol, and so is the hormones, so it's kind of cool that it drags cholesterol through to make hormones and CoQ10 and vitamin Ds instead of sitting there as cholesterol.
So it's almost like, essentially, this is sort of like one of the supplements that if you had real good access to this and let's say you had all the resources in the world and you could make this mat, it's like you essentially wouldn't really need too many others.
No.
Like,
no.
Like
it's one of those things. But it's so highly regulated in Australia that we would never get it on the market anyway. Yeah. And it tastes terrible.
Yeah,
it's like tar. But it also makes you a little psycho. Or me, when I used to have it, if I wasn't getting regular action or something like that, you'd be really cranky.
I just put because obviously I didn't know which brands and stuff to get, but wouldn't even buy Shilajit. I just mix it in bone broth. Yep. And I'd have that with bone broth, and I just feel supercharged. Yeah. Every time that I'm eating oysters every day. Yep. And when I'm having like a bone broth with Shilajit or something every single day as well. Yep. The energy is just...
Yeah, zinc, and that is phenomenal for all of those things. Now, you got to realise too that one of Shilajit's traditional uses was chelation, detox. So to go through chelate and strips out heavy metals, and that's where the fulvic acid compounds come from as a chelation agent. So you can realise too there's a big link with our hormonal dysfunction where toxic exposure depletes things like zinc and selenium at the same time as it upregulates certain enzymes like aromatase and 5-alpha reductase that take your testosterone and convert it through to estrogen or dihydrotestosterone, and it's all stimulated by the presence or the exposure to toxins. Or maybe it's stimulated by the depletion of the nutrients, such as zinc and selenium, by those compounds that allows those enzymes to run haywire. Regardless, when you use a combination of something like Shilajit with the fulvic acid minerals this time, we're talking those ones up rather than the hormonal parts, they combine with zinc and selenium to strip out the toxins that have caused the hormonal defect.
What?
And that's where nature's so much fucking smarter, because we see that. I keep swearing because I get excited. But
yeah, we have
we have the fulvic acid and everything doing the chelation that allows for your hormones to work, and then the urolithins come in, modify the receptors to trick your body into thinking you've got no hormone, no testosterone. You better make some more.
Do you want to go to Market Organics after this and get some?
Go probably
get some Shilajit.
Mummio. So Mummio is a good brand. I know Mummio is a good brand because they're actually coming out of the rocks. But you'll even get Shilajit that's found one side of the hill has got really high iron in the soil, and then the other side's really high in gold.
Whoa.
And so if you get the Shilajit with a gold, it's actually better as an anti-inflammatory and better for autoimmune. And you get the Shilajit from the iron side, and it's better for the fatigue and everything. It's like...
I'd love to know what goes through your brain when you go through
my brain
through a health store. You know when you walk into a health store.
It's too much. Over-analysis leads to paralysis. Yeah. So I'm just like, the thing that ruined it all for me was my experience with quality control. Like how many dodgy supplement suppliers were out there. Like, for example, Korean ginseng, I think we tested 12 suppliers to find one that was actually selling as Korean ginseng.
Wow.
A lot of them were just spiked ginsenosides or the wrong species, or just totally wrong. Like, it really spun me out. And that's my big problem now, is I'm like, I don't know with quality control. And now I'm like, the whole time, unless I make it myself, or unless I'm getting it
you'd be
myself,
so I have to make everything myself.
Well, I do, and then I end up like not taking it, or
You're like an alchemist and a wizard with his pot making things.
And there's because that goes back to that results, not excuses as well. When I make a product or I use a product, I want to know if the product's working or not. And I want to know, based on, have I got the dose right? And with the actives, is it working for me? Does it do what it's supposed to do in the studies?
If you want to test any on me, I'll volunteer.
Yeah, if I don't even know if I've got the material, but if I don't even know if what I'm taking is what it says it is, then I'm stuck. I don't know with my results. I might have actually created an excuse here, but I don't know. I just don't know. And so unless I know what I'm taking, I can't accurately assess its efficacy, because I'm a nut.
I'd love to know your opinion as well, sort of like dipping into like almost, I'd say, the spiritual side of things in terms of, because there's so many herbs and stuff that you know miraculous about, and there's so much that happens like within the body and the gut and stuff. But I'd like to know some sort of, in your opinion, external things, because remember in our last podcast we talked about, hugs and love and how that makes that oxytocin. But I'd love to know just from your mind, in terms of stuff that like you'd encourage people to do, that's outside the box of putting things in your mouth. Like, what are some things that you find that are like fantastic? Obviously we talked about sun on the balls, but like, is there any other things that...
Well, put sun on your balls when you do all of these things. Just as a general rule. But no.
Get a Juve light.
Well, physics is in the basis of all chemistry. And so,
Wait, physics is the basis of all chemistry.
Yeah.
It is.
And so when you actually use a substance to induce a change or something like that, or we provide nutrients and macros and micros and everything like that just to make an electron as a negative charge as part of an electron transport chain. It's just like, why don't we just use the electrons? Just plug it in, It's like, so I'm a massive believer in frequency, energy, interactions with all that sort of stuff. But I'll tell you, one of the things that has been one of the most influential things for me personally.
Is it Ken Ware?
Ken Ware, what he taught me.
Is it?
It's not, it will partly, Ken Ware, Don Wood, Ben Greenfields, and some of these people that I've had good conversations with, but it wasn't any particular thing that they taught me, but it was the concept. And what they've made me realize is that we are an energetic thing. We are energy, and we're on a ball of energy and surrounded by energy, and everything in between us is energy. We're in a soup of interaction between auras and fields, and every interaction is an exchange of energy and everything like that. But also, we are all broken in different ways. None of one's perfect. Now, the people that go really well, and the athletes and stuff like that, compared to the people that I used to treat in my clinic with chronic fatigues and these terminal illnesses and stuff. So things, if you look at the chronic disease states compared to an athlete, their files would be the same. They're complaining of the same symptoms. You could read them and they'd be the same. Stuff's happening. Just one of them's complaining of chronic fatigue. One of them's looking for peak performance. And you're just sitting there going, it's funny, if you two could meet, you'd realise that you share exactly the same symptoms. And it's funny because...
Just have different motivations?
Yeah. No, what actually happens is, I believe, is that one thing that I see in successful people is this ability to calibrate with their imperfections and move forward. So, for example, everything that's happened to you in your life has created some sort of memory, an emotion to that memory, some sort of trauma, something's imprinted somewhere. Each one of those things can have an influence on your system, positive or negative. Every one of those experiences can change you and has changed you. However, I'm here right now. I've got all of my defects, all of my experiences, all my memories and trauma. It's all in here. But look at me. I'm capable of being here right now. What's even freakier about that is I'm standing on a rock that's spinning around, held down with gravity, with atmospheres, spinning around another rock, with rocks everywhere and shit spinning and like miles of space. We got gravity, we got colours, we got frequency, I got solar flares, I got radiation, I got these things. But man, why the fuck am I flying off this rock as well? It's like, and then I've got these issues and everything. So at any moment, I can get my feet in the ground and own this space on this rock. I can basically drop my traps. I can have my heels into the ground. I can be standing tall. I'm not falling away from anything. I'm not getting dragged into anything. I'm here. I'm me. I'm on this rock with everything in me. And by the way, I can do this. And I can do this. And I can balance on one leg. And I can do these bits and pieces. And I can do it with perfect symmetry. And I can do it with a perfectly relaxed, comfortable posture. Where I'm not in a defensive posture. And even with my inflammation, even with my oxidative stress, even with my dysbiotic bacteria, even with my hormonal dysregulation, even with my old injuries, my trauma, that thing that happened to me as a kid.
A bad mindset, self-belief, can't do it, not good enough.
But with all of that stuff, I am capable of signaling to my body, holy shit, I'm here, I'm doing amazing things, and look at me. I'm capable. I'm here. I'm doing it. And I'm not stressed. I'm capable of dropping my
Stress is a choice.
Yeah. So, and I'm capable of, so the calibration, not recalibrating, not reprogramming, not repeat. You can't anything. We are what we are, and we're constantly moving forward. You can't rewind. You can't redo. We are here, and we move forward. So it's not a recalibration. You are calibrating every day with all of your strengths, weaknesses, defects, traumas, memories, injuries, allergies, whatever it might be. Calibrating in the day that you are awesome, and this is your point that you're moving forward from. And when you actually quieten your mind and you go through and do this calibration sort of stuff that I do, just running through a series of exercises and mental stuff and everything as well, it gives you a starting point that your body goes, and this is what I'm working with. We're not in survival mode right now. We're in recovery and rebuilding, and we're going to get better and better. And then your body goes, oh, but my shoulder was stiff doing that. It's like, sweet, got that covered. I'll fix that shoulder today. And it's just like, it's freaky. So that has been the biggest important thing for me, is regardless of what's happening in my life, if I'm capable of stopping, it's almost like that saying, if you don't have 20 minutes to meditate, then do it for 2 hours. So that's what is that confusion. For the man that doesn't have 20 minutes to meditate in a day, he needs to meditate for 2 hours. It's the lesson. Now with this calibration, sometimes I'm talking about doing like 30 reps of 10 seconds, perfect, focusing on perfect symmetry. That's like, you're there for like 3 to 5 minutes. It's like torture, trying to maintain that. But if you can do that, you teach yourself that there's always time. You can time to stop and focus on your body, that there's always some signals coming from your body back to your brain that you can always heal and you can always calibrate and move forward. Yeah, and that's, I think, some of the most important lessons that I learned. So Don Wood was a very influential person for me. He's a brilliant psychologist that does trauma. And what he does is, when these people talk about the trauma, he can fix like people that have had decades of trauma in like one session. Yeah.
I was going to turn that camera on.
Oh yeah, it did its thing.
So you fix people in one session?
Yeah, and he does it by fucking up their memory. And that's all it is. And then the same as with Ken Ware, with his other rehab, they just screw shit up. So what I'm saying is,
I can't wait to see Ken Ware, by the way.
Oh yeah, you have to go see him.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. But what I did, one of my favourite podcasts I did was I got Ken Ware and Don Wood into one podcast, and I basically just got them to tell us what they do. And they one's foot up and the other one's head down, but they both have the ability to wipe the emotional memory attached to a trauma, and they can do it in one go. And then these people are just
Why isn't this taught everywhere?
blown away. Yeah, I know. And the way they do it, the things that they had in common was just that calibrating and moving forward with your trauma. Just saying, thank you, I heard you. But you've got to realise that memory, your brain, see, our eyes don't see, our brain gathers the data and it determines what we see. So if you're having a memory, your brain thinks it could be happening. And if you're having that memory and your traps are up and you're in a defensive posture, or you're stressing, or you're at gym doing the angst, or if you're bawling and crying and talking about it, then your brain still thinks it could actually be happening. So it keeps giving you your survival techniques you need to survive it if it thinks it's happening. So what these people are doing is just scrambling with shit. So it's saying it can't possibly be happening right now. Because if it did, I would be stressed, not relaxed, not laughing, not doing this stuff. So they screw with the memory and it changes forever. It's crazy. That's probably one of the most influential things that happened to me, because I had some shit that I wanted to get through and I was just stuck.
Everything is good and always will be.
Yeah. It's a nice little thing. Another t-shirt.
I can't remember who said that. I remember the sort of one goal that I have in mind, because obviously young, whole world in front of me and stuff. But one of the main goals that I take and cherish all the time was just, Friedrich Nietzsche said it, and he was just said, a man who doesn't have at least 2/3 of the day to himself is a slave.
Oh.
To matter what it is.
Yeah.
And some days I'm working flat out, which is crazy. Then other days I will get days where I get just as amount of work done or whatever it is, and I have 2/3 of the day to myself. Yeah. And those are the days where I would say the calibration happens. I'm just applying this for myself, anyone who's listening, using myself as an example. Yeah. Where I'd say that calibration happens and I just can't help but keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And they're like the best to take it in and soak it in. And I just take that time, and the self-belief and everything else that comes through is just so crazy, especially if I can string a couple of those together.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And the funny thing is when you're in doing that calibration and you're calm and you're quiet, and time just slows down. Yeah. You seem to have a lot more time. But you know what else happens to me? I'm a terrible person for FOMO in the past.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just this competitive thing, or this ego. Just ego, probably, just driving through this thing. I
like miss out on what? Is it family time or social?
Does not matter.
Anything.
So
anyone could dag or something.
I don't even want to go to bed at night in case I miss out. You know, like kids.
Yeah.
They're like, but what are you guys watching? Or, you know, like, are you going to have snacks or anything?
I actually work with a few people that are in that position in terms of they've never felt, it's like I'm not sure if it might be for you, but for them it's been like a not good enough to fit in thing. Yeah. So because they don't feel welcomed or a part of the tribe, they will always go,
Yeah. That could definitely
might not be for you, but for some people,
no. That could definitely be something, because you know, typical, just an overgrown child, you know, with the same fear of abandonment and wanting to be in a crew and wanting to have friends and shit. That's definitely stuff that happens. But also with FOMO, I think a lot of it goes down to your self-esteem and self-worth. And thinking,
not worthy enough.
Just going, shit, I'm not very confident that I'll be able to achieve goals myself, and if I say no to yours, then I'm going to miss out. The
fear of independance. Independence is a privilege of the strong. Another Friedrich Nietzsche quote. Sorry, I'm banging out all these quotes.
Brilliant. No, I like them, and I remember them too, because they come back later, and it makes sense now. But no, that's what I think. There's a big, just that. The FOMO is a big one, because, and if you've got FOMO, you can't say no. And saying no is possibly one of the most important things for all time management, but also to achieve your goals, but also to understand what your goals are. And you can't be everything to everyone, and you can't be everywhere at the same time. I mean, so you have to start working out what you want to be when you grow up, and say no to things that don't help you get there. And that's a big challenge, because here's that fear of missing out. I think that's a lot of ego stuff, where you've got that jealousy. If I say no and then they succeed, I'm going to be kicking myself. You know?
A lot of people don't listen to their unconscious when it comes to this, and where it actually pulls them towards. And then they sort of get into this stage where they're at a fear of change because they've forsaken themselves, and it's easier to feel pity for themselves because they've given up, instead of to make one little adjustment somewhere else. You know what I mean? Because obviously your environment situation is going to be there, and your ego is going to find a nice, safe, comfortable place within your environment and situation. Yeah. And the only way to change it, and to change your ego, this is what I personally believe, is to change environment situation. May not be a big thing, it could be a small thing. Could be like, a big thing would be changing house, but it could be changing gyms, changing where you do shopping, or anything that's going to change sort of your routine environment or your current situation. Getting into jobs. You know, many people that I work with, they've come sort of like through my program, who have just got to this position where they want to work through the program, and they're like, I've just realized I need to change my job because I've got no time for myself at all. And to even like do this program and stuff, I'm going to like change my job because I want more time for myself because I want to do this program.
Yeah.
And then they change the jobs.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
that thing that's put them through. Like, I've been doing this for 5 years. Like, why haven't I changed this before? I'm going to have so much more time for myself now.
Yeah.
Like, those options are out there. So thank you for saying that.
Man, I was in the same situation with mine because I was pretty much unemployable because I wanted to have a job where I could do all my stuff I wanted to do and be free to think and do my innovation and inventing. And no one would want to pay me what I wanted to be paid to do that job for their business. They want you to do all the other shit as well.
Yeah, they get it
And
back
so,
though. Like,
but then I go and build. Yeah, I know, but it's just not part of it.
Yeah, I
you know. But then, so I built my own, and then what I ended up doing is having zero time because I ended up doing all that.
Yeah.
I was so busy in the business, and my worst thing was a very bad manager, and I'm very bad at explaining.
You're a creator.
Yeah, I can't explain to someone. And, you know, like, I'd have staff, you know, what do I do here? I just, whatever the fuck it takes. You know where we want to go. You know, I don't even know what your job is, but you just do what you do to get us to here. And because I can't explain what I do, I can't ask someone to help what I do. And by the time I'm such a bad person at explaining or instructing that eventually I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
And then I don't even teach it. And there's no scale, there's no leverage.
Yeah. That's why human resources actually is so important because I worked in human resources for a while.
Yeah.
And obviously just finding the right people for the right job is
so
crazy. And having someone with the right personality type, with the purpose that is attached to that. I love people. I love working with people.
Yeah.
Because someone who's a creator, man, and like, you know, that's your purpose and your passion, I would say is something along the lines of literally to give humanity the tools to be humans would literally be, your purpose would be something like that.
Yeah.
And so you be your happiest when you're creating the tools for the humans.
I remember being so excited at one stage because we got this new office, and then turned out that there was this weird void that we weren't allowed to build into, you know, because upstairs, downstairs, fire extinguishers and shit, you know. But they said that there was a massive concrete wall in there with a light above it. And they said, yeah, I can use that for my mind map. So I can build like a giant mind map because I've been working on building out this mind map that almost looks like those big I should just go to the biochemistry pathways. Same fucking thing, but done better. But I have my mind maps, you know, that are, and I'm trying to piece together because it's a big thing. That's how I run my consultations, and everything was to do product development. That's how I work out how to save the world. It's all done through these processes because mind maps allow you to find where you've got the holes and plug them, or find if you've got the ultimate tool that works across the whole pathway, you know, not just in the target. I was so excited about that, but then it just got so caught up with all these business stuff and the frustration that I felt between not being able to just get stuck into this innovation. Because like you're saying, I needed those good 6 to 8 hour stints where I could just get in and do it. And I just could never do it. And then the frustration from that was driving me crazy. And then I become psychotic to the point that everything broke.
Of course you would though.
Yeah.
Because that's not like your path or not following your bliss in certain way. So every single way, which way, whatever for you, you're going to sort of create an environment around yourself, which is going to try and push you back. And it's going to to do that. And it's going to keep making everything so shit until that yearning is filled to actually go out and have all this time, which assuming you probably have some now.
Well, regulations are horrendous because what you've got to understand is if you have a product that you're trying to sell to someone somewhere, you can't give any free education. Because anything free that you provide is deemed to be marketing. But if you don't have something to sell, then it's education. It's just free education. And you're a terrible business person. You're just giving away everything for free, they think. But that's stupid, but that's okay. But if you have a product that you're trying to sell and you give away free education, then that is deemed to be marketing. At no point. So then the only way that I can educate someone and tell them my concepts is if they pay for the education. But people don't. The problem is I could provide the free education because we had a separate part of the business that would sell products, and that finally built me the vehicle that I could innovate. I could come up with concepts and ideas and share them to people because that's what I always wanted to do. The product sales were on the side that were basically allowing for that service to be available, but then the government's coming through going, no, you need to sell your education. Otherwise, it's misleading advertising and you're trying to trick them into buying your products. So I was even getting fined at one stage for talking about ingredients we don't sell or stock. They're still trying to say I'm trying to mislead the public into buying an ingredient, even though I don't sell it. And I was just trying to educate them on it.
You better start making a lot of products, man.
Yeah, well, this is the problem, is if you make products. So now I'm in that position where I've kind of left the company that made the product, so I'm capable of providing some information now as education.
How's that make you feel?
Oh, it feels really good. It feels really good. I just hope that they know I'm not there anymore.
Sorry,
We're
guys.
going to get pinged again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, that is another problem with our ability to educate, is we're very restricted into what information we can share, because it's got to fit a certain agenda. But if you're also part of the system, then you're not even allowed to have an opinion.
And what are you doing for education at the moment? Is it X Trials?
Yeah, we're doing the X Trials. We're doing the live. I'm going to.
What is it?
The podcast. Oh, the X Trials is kind of cool, because when I started my businesses, it didn't matter which business it was. When I was doing product development for other companies, because I used to take contracts for those sort of companies, like Metagenics and Sanofi's and those sort of guys before I started the ATP. But then when we first started ATP, and you asked Ty, because that's when I first met your mate Ty Lucas there. I used to go to these like gyms where I knew there was like psycho lab rats everywhere. And before I used bodybuilders, I used to do like animals, like racehorses and swimmers.
Swimmers.
The Olympic people, mental. So I used to love doing the trials. So my favourite part of all of my whole career has always been making those eureka discoveries, where I wake up in the middle of the night and like stoked and so fired up, finding the materials. And then I'll trial the materials to make sure the materials work the same in real people as they do in the products or in the studies and stuff like that. That was the most fun part. And the most fun part was inventing these new products where I'm buying the raw materials, compounding. Even my naturopath clinic, nothing worked. Nothing worked the way it said it should bloody work. But then when I went and secured the raw materials and I got them tested to make sure it was actually the stuff, and I mixed them up, then shit would work. And you're just like, man, it's dodgy manufacturing or dodgy, I don't know what it is. I don't know. But the problem is it doesn't bloody work. But when I recreate it my own way, it would actually work. And I'm talking significant difference. And so the most fun part I've ever had in the industry is when I'm making up trial batches, we're trying different flavors. And I'm also obsessed with functional flavors, everything. If you're consuming a teaspoon of something, I don't care if the active is less than 1/4 of that. You're consuming a teaspoon of something. I need to know every part of that teaspoon and how it may influence that mind map. Now you see why I do mind maps for everything. Because when I go back, I might have this herb that does this and this. But then when I go and have a look at what the flavour base or the fibre base or the excipient, how is that going to influence the way this product works? And that's got to fit into the mind map. If it doesn't, then we change it. And then the craziest things I've ever done is the same basic boring ingredient mixed with different flavour bases can totally change how the product works, because it's the flavour that's based on fibres, but all the PPAR receptors, everything in there saying, is this sweet, savoury, oily? Am I consuming, like the one thing that messed with my head so much was we had all these receptors through our intestinal tract that tells us we've just eaten a heap of calories and sugars, and they'll actually tell your body to switch off fat burning. Now, if those ingredients are used in a fat burning supplement, you know what I mean? Then you're basically the flavour base I don't give a shit what the text says about that. When we trialled the product, the flavour base stopped it from working. But when we changed the flavour base to this, it had a synergistic effect, and all of a sudden it worked better than the ingredient by itself. That's the gold, what we're looking for. So that's what I love. And with the X Trials, basically what we're doing is when I make these new cool discoveries, we share the information. Because it's in a group, it's not misleading advertising. So I can provide a certain amount of free education within a group, protected, because they've joined the group because they want my information. And they've also acknowledged that I'm not trying to trick them into buying something. Do what the hell you like with the information. So we provide information, and then what I do is when we find an opportunity to convert that into a product, then we get to use the X Trials. Anyone that's part of the X Trials get to try the product.
Oh, God, I'm so happy I'm a part of the X Trials.
And we're just going to say, here's the concept, here's the idea. You can go and do it now. Here's your supplement, here's the ingredients.
Let's go,
Just go find it. Go have a crack. Here's a dietary concept. Here's an exercise concept. Here's a meditation technique you could try. But once we get these things and we find this information, we share it in amongst the group so they can have a crack and give us some feedback. And then we can create new things. But even then, also we're going to ask them, what do you want us to make? Because, I mean, I've got dozens of people coming to me wanting them to make them products. And then they're going, how do you make products at work? And I said, well, we got to have a crack. You try it, and in theory, it's all something. It's not until you give it to the lab rats and you get the lab rat feedback. Now, I don't want lab rat feedback from some other idiot, meaning if I was to pay a market research company to test my products, I'd put an ad in the Courier Mail. They want a generic group of 30 people that aren't biased. Unbiased, that's bullshit. I want biased. I want the feedback from my customers. I don't want some idiot that's bored, unemployed, or a pensioner or something that doesn't buy any of my products, that saw an ad in the Courier Mail saying they get paid $25 to go to an hour to taste these things. Then these people that are never going to buy your product, that's not into it, doesn't like it, gives you all this bullshit feedback because they want to feel special, because they're bored or they've got paid $25, they're trying to give you $25 worth of value. So I don't care for your opinion. And the people that use the products, that want the products, like if I make a plant-based protein, for example, I'll be asking the people that buy plant-based proteins to try it. Because if you don't buy plant-based proteins because you don't like plant-based proteins, then I don't want you to try this. Because you're going to tell us, I wouldn't buy that either. You know what I mean? Did you see the Red Bull? You research that, Red Bull market research. There's a wicked letter that was written from a market research company to Red Bull, basically saying, after Red Bull paid them to do market research, they said it's bloody horrible, stupid concept. Who would want something that gives them jitters and run? No one believes they're going to get wings from drinking this thing. Yeah, they listed it and said it was all stupid. Everything about it. Go back to the drawing board. Worst idea we've ever seen. And Red Bull replied, going, well, we happen to like it. We're probably going to go do it anyway. But can you imagine if they listened to them?
Yeah, I know.
But they asked the wrong people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy. One last thing I'd like to talk about with you, just like generalistic stuff. It's just sort of like, in terms, I'd like to know like your idea on food, because obviously food is like very practical, and like in terms of just combining certain foods together. Because there's so many different diets, there's so many different things out there. It's overwhelming, right? And everyone's like, obviously, like I believe it's sort of everyone wants to eat just the right things for them, and as long as they're getting majority of micronutrients in there, then that's like the key. I believe that's sort of my style of thing. I'd like to know like sort of what your opinion.
Mine's a weird and long stupid answer, as you can imagine. So for me, one of the most important steps in our evolutionary process, and that's the stuff in us acquiring this relationship with our microbiome, was the local seasonal eating, and that includes cycling diets. It also includes regular
summer, autumn, winter, spring.
Yeah. So you got to eat what's local. You know, we talk about these polyphenols that modulate the gut flora.
Yeah.
In less than 2 weeks of that fruit being picked, they've lost 80% of their polyphenols. So even if you're eating organic, awesome, perfect, and everything, if you're not eating it fresh and getting it within that right time, it's totally changed. And so the big point is in my belief, is we got to eat with the seasons and try to eat as locally as possible, so you can get the stuff when it's freshly picked.
It makes so much sense. I remember you saying actually on a podcast, you were talking about, you know, we drink the water, we breathe the air, we do all those things. It's going to change. We're here, and every time with the air and everything that you're doing is going to get certain microbes in anyway. Yeah. All the animals are eating all the stuff. They're doing everything. So we just want to eat with them, follow the weather trends. And keep that, because then that goes through the actual.
Well, that will have cycling. It'll cycle your carbs. It'll cycle your oils. It'll cycle the different bits and pieces. You'll get phases of intermittent fasting and failed hunting trips, and you'll get all those bits and pieces. You know, so and that's natural to create the cycles we do. Now, when I work with my bodybuilders and bodybuilding coaches, they do a similar thing. They have these 3 or 4 different diet strategies that they'll cycle through. You start with a starting point and we'll see how you go, and then we'll modify it. The whole fat loss, muscle gain and everything, it's a big adaptation game. So it's just about seeing when they adapt to the adaptation and changing it again. And that's how we get these miraculous results. But if you follow the laws of nature, that actually happens anyway. So it's just going back to a boring answer of follow the laws of nature and basically become an animal and eat with the animals.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Well, Matt, I'd like to thank you so much for coming onto the show.
It's fun.
And yeah, where can people sort of find you or get to the extras?
I've got a webpage, mattlegge.com.
Yep.
But otherwise, the
You're
extras,
offering
Facebook
consulting at the moment as well?
I'm a bit confused because
Okay.
I did and just got so overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
I opened it up and I put like an online booking system and said to a couple of people, I'm taking bookings. It just got stupid.
Okay.
And then I got a bit overwhelmed. So, I'm trying to manage through the ones that I'm doing, but like I said, I think I'm better off focusing on the education side rather than the one-on-one, because the only reason why is I'm going to stop and build stationery and shit.
Yeah.
And if I put all that effort into creating reports and stationery to run that business, then I will never write my books. So I'm thinking I might write books and create everything that I've done in my clinic, all my programs and protocols and everything that I do, like my testosterone protocols, my PCOS protocols, or whatever these are. I create these protocols as actual things that people can just have. I think it might be more fun, and I think I might get better leverage out of it. And
Yeah,
that sort
and
of
help
stuff.
more people.
Help more
I like
people
it.
than one at a time, because I kind of suck with the stationery.
So jump on the extras. Essentially,
Just
you
go
get
to
access to
Facebook,
them.
get the extras, and then we just do everything through there. And just share. I just want to pump it out.
Oh, that's so good. Well, I always give the listeners, and I know you've been on the podcast before, but I like to challenge everyone to do something from what they've been listening to in the actual podcast. So what is one thing that you would challenge in terms of all the stuff that we've said for the listeners, for them to start taking action on, or try something today, tomorrow, this week, get some Shilajit? Like, what is it? What do you think
No,
it
man,
is?
do the calibration stuff, because it's something that anyone can do anywhere, anytime.
Okay. What's it actually called specifically?
I don't know. Neurophysics therapy. Just if you Google, I did a cool YouTube video with Ken Ware.
Yeah.
So there's a
I'll link it.
neurophysics one there where we show some things. But basically, is if everyone can just focus on getting their heels into the ground and their feet relaxed, no traps, no frown, and all that sort of stuff, close your eyes and basically just see if you can find your finger. Yeah, I'm trying to demonstrate it, but basically closing your eyes and running around.
Yeah, you're holding your fingers really wide and you're coming out and you're touching them
10
right in front of
seconds.
you, but you got to try and do
Try
it.
to do
without...
it like over 10
I
seconds.
missed.
I know, it spins you out. So 10 seconds, and also try to count like a 10-second
So
rep to
all
get
the
to
way
where your
around,
finger.
yeah.
And then as you're doing it, you just,
I was under and then I was over.
and then you'll find little sticky spots or asymmetries.
Yeah.
And you don't have to fix it, because you just go back and do it again and it may disappear. So it's just a matter of going through. And then once you do that, and then it's just a matter of touching your nose. Same thing. But it's all done with your eyes shut. And then once you get good at that, you just try to stand up on one leg with your eyes shut. That's all. Just do that. And if you do that, you'll freak out. But you'll get better and better at it every time. And you got to do the eyes shut, because otherwise we've got too many visual cues.
Yeah.
But when you do that, it's just your body going, where am I in space and time? And it's a spit out, man.
Oh, I love it so much. Well, thanks once again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
My man.